If you're a regular viewer of AutoEV, you'll probably know that this is my BMW iX2. Now, it would be fair to say that this isn't everyone's cup of tea, this car, primarily because of the way that it looks. It is quite controversial when it comes to its styling. But also as well, in terms of its value for money, it is struggling a little bit. In fairness, this particular car, this xDrive 30 M Sport that I have, with the options on it that I chose, is as near as damn it £67,000. That being said, it's lovely to drive. It's very sporty, it's very comfortable, and it's very, very easy to live with. But nevertheless, it's got me thinking, did I choose the right car? Because this is its main rival, which is of course the Audi Q4 e-tron Sportback. And whilst it's been around for a little while now, Audi's just given it a little bit of an update. Now, it's fair to say, when it comes to Audi, they've given us a little bit of a mixed bag when it comes to their electric offerings. Some have been good, some maybe not so much. But we think this has been quite a good car, in fairness. And lots of you obviously do as well, because this is Audi's biggest selling SUV, and it sells quite a few of those. So, have Audi done enough to convince me that this is a better car than the iX2? And should I be driving this instead of that? Welcome to this week's twin test. Welcome back to my BMW iX2. Welcome to the newly updated Audi Q4 e-tron's 55 Sportback. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's twin test between the BMW iX2 and Audi's Q4 e-tron 55 Sportback, it is of course the time where I would ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get notified of when our next video is uploaded, and of course it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, which I really hope you will, then of course give it a little thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars review, such as the BMW iX2 and Audi's Q4 e-tron, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. So I'm sort of halfway through my long-term ownership of the iX2 now, and I've really been enjoying the car. Okay, yes, the styling's not everyone's, you know, sort of like taste, and I get that. I'm still not quite sure about it myself, but in fairness, it's a great little car to drive. I really like it. It's very sporty, it's typical BMW, and it does offer a huge amount in terms of the practicalities of everyday electric car motoring. But at a price, as I say, value for money wise, it does struggle to justify itself. However, that being said, the Audi doesn't exactly crown itself in glory when it comes to that front, as we'll see later. But the Q4 is a very, very popular car, and obviously we've tested it before, and we prefer the Q4 to its larger, the large e-tron, and which is obviously now the Q8 e-tron, and I still prefer it to the much larger cars. As I say, Audi's electric offerings have been a real mixed bag for us. Love the e-tron GT, love the Q4, haven't been so struck on the bigger e-tron. And I think the Q4 offers better efficiency, offers better range, while still delivering good design, brilliant build quality, great Audi attributes, and of course the real benefit is it's built on a dedicated EV platform. But does that make it better than the BMW? Well, of course, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting them through the twin test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle, the AutoEV one. Right, let's kick off with styling, because it's probably the most controversial aspect about this car. Now, when I introduced the BMW iX2 to the channel as a replacement for my Renault Megane E-Tech, there was a lot of you went, really? What have you done? And I must admit, yes, it was a bold choice in fairness. However, I am getting used to it. And I'm not saying I love it, I'm just saying that actually I don't mind it so much. And I think BMW's styling is of that ilk. It's when you start to get used to it, it doesn't look quite as bad. Or am I just justifying that to myself? Who knows? But what I will say is it's quite specification sensitive. Now, I've been abroad quite a lot of recent months. Haven't managed to get to drive the car that much, in fairness. And in France, the UK only gets the M Sport trim in the iX2. The other countries get SE models and things like that. You need to have the M Sport. I'm glad BMW have only brought the M Sport in, because when you see it with smaller wheels and, you know, not so much body colouring on it and things like that, oh, it does look a bit more challenging. So I think it was the right decision to only bring it in M Sport trim as far as the UK is concerned. There's bits of it I'm still getting used to, such as the back end. The front I'm actually okay with now, in fairness. I never liked all this black plastic at first, which is why I went for a darker colour. And I still think that's the right way to go with it. But I have got used to that now, and I do like the glow around the grille. I do like that. That's an option, but I'm pleased that I picked that because it makes the car stand out tonight. Lights are excellent. You get the lovely twin BMW lamps, the LED matrix headlamps with the little tick daytime running lights and indicators down the side of them. They look good. I'm still a bit miffed about the offset camera because it annoys my OCD every time I see it. It should be there, but it's not. There we go. But yeah, on the whole, I think, as I say, it's growing on me. But as I say, it's not perfect, which I'll now show you. See, the side profile's fine, I think, until you get to about here. And then it's this slightly elongated, it looks quite long, this to me. This swooping fastback design. Yeah, it's the back end that I'm struggling with. I don't mind the front, I like the side up until about there. There we go. I've got 20-inch bi-colour M Sport alloys on mine. As I say, M Sport standard, so of course you get the M badge, body colour, wheel arch extensions. This is an xDrive 30, so dual motor, the more powerful car as well. You can obviously get it in the eDrive 20, but that's the more powerful Q4, which we'll talk about in a bit of a second. Flush door handles, privacy glass, which I love. The reason I chose this car as well was because it had the pan roof. I like a panoramic roof. But yeah, it's this back end here. That's still, jury's still out on that for me. Do you want to have a look at it? You ready? Oof. See what I mean? Yeah. Whenever I approach it from the back, I'm like, God, is that my car? Yeah. Anyway, weird tail light design, I think. It's really odd. It's sort of, I don't know, it's very un-BMW like. Now I remember talking to the guys from BMW way before the car was launched, and they did say, wait till you see the iX2. They said it's going to really divide opinion, and it really does. One thing I will say about this kind of bigger bum it has, it's got a good bit of practicality, in fairness. But without doubt, I think the better styled car is the iX1. The full size. This is sort of the coupe version of that. So whilst Audi's Q4, they just have the Q4 e-tron or the Q4 e-tron Sportback as the coupe one, BMW call it iX1 and then iX2 because the even numbers are coupes, odd numbers are standard cars. But yeah, in this area down here, it's just a bit, you know, in the big badge number, which is nice because it's the, you know, sort of like the boot release and stuff. Cameras in the centre at the back. They did it at the back, don't know why they didn't do it at the front, with a little washer as well. And that kind of stuck on spoiler. No rear wiper as well, which does piss me off a little bit, but there you go. Yeah, so look, as I say, I'm not going to go into the styling too much in detail, because we've done it before. I've done a couple of reviews of the car, and I'll pop video links up to the other reviews we've done on the iX2 if you want a more in-depth view of what we think of that. But yeah, it's challenging from certain looks, but as I say, I am getting used to certainly it at the front, but it still needs a bit of work at the back, I think. Now, thankfully, Audi have left the Q4 e-tron well alone when it comes to design, because I think it's a really handsome wee car, and Audis have always been that way in terms of the style. As much as I prefer this to the bigger e-tron in terms of the overall car, the big e-tron's a good looking, the Q8 e-tron as it's now called, is a good looking car. There's a little bit of Russian doll-esque styling goes on within Audi's range, but I think they'll get back to where they were. But yeah, I think this is quite a handsome little car. Bit more sober looking, especially in this grey, and less controversial, although you do get this big plastic non-grille at the front, and of course your 4 rings of English start there. Do you see that? Camera centred. See that BMW? They've managed to do it. Cooling's obviously done down at the bottom there, little e-tron bit there, and these nice matrix LED headlamps here. So yeah, it's a much more cohesive looking car, certainly from the front, but tidier looking, less controversial, typical Audi really. But yeah, handsome looking beast, I think. Now this is an S-Line car, which I suppose, is that the equivalent of the BMW M Sport? I think it is, although you get a Vorsprung edition, which is a higher grade, I think. Anyway, whatever it is, I always thought the S-Line was the kind of sportier version, so probably similar to the M Sport, and that's it. 20-inch alloy wheels here. Don't look it, but they are the 20-inch alloy wheels. Ride quality's not the best in fairness, but we'll discuss that when we're driving it. Of course you get a little S-line badge there, but again, like the front, really neat, isn't it? Really some nice lines to the car. These slightly blistered rear wheel arches always remind me of the original Quattro, the way that they just slightly blisters out from the bodywork. And I've never been a lover of coupe SUVs. Again, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that. But again, Audi just seem to have got the design a bit right. I think this is quite a handsome looking car. It's like it was designed to be a coupe SUV right from the start. I probably would, like the BMW, if it was me, go for the normal Q4 personally, because I prefer the look of a normal SUV. But I think this is a good looking one, you know, as these coupe SUVs go. No flush door handles on the car. You get proper big chunky door handles, as you can see, but like the BMW, privacy glass at the back, good sized door mirrors for seeing down the flanks, charge and flap on the, well, obviously the offside if you're in the UK, but yeah, handsome thing, isn't it? Which continues around the back of the car. The only downside, and it's not really a massive problem in fairness, but this spoiler does cut through the back window, so you've got a lower window, you know, see, as you're looking in the rear view mirror, that's in your eye line there. But in fairness, it's not the end of the world, and it's not as controversial a bum as the BMWs. Again, like the rest of it, very neat signature light bar across the back, Audi badge at the top there, nice badging round there. There is a reversing camera, I can't remember where it is. Where the hell is it? Oh yeah, it's tucked up underneath there. And again, like the BMW, no rear wiper. e-tron embossed into the rear bumper like you get at the front. Right, I think by now we're probably all in unison basically saying the Audi's probably the better looking car. Whilst it's a little bit more sensible and a little bit more staid and safe, it's also quite a handsome beast. The BMW takes a bit of getting used to it, which is BMW styling at the moment. As I say, I like it from certain angles, but there's still other angles that I find it quite jarring. So this is certainly, I think, going to take the win when it comes to the design between the two cars. But what do you think? As always, I'm sure you will. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, one benefit of that slightly awkward rear end is the fact that you've actually got quite good boot space for a coupe SUV. 525 litres of boot space that you get in the BMW as standard. As you can see, there are the 4 suitcases, the 4 AutoEV suitcases, plus my rucksack camera bag that can go in there. The other nice thing with the BMW as well is you get underfloor storage for your cables. So if you are having to take your cables around with you, if you're staying at hotels and stuff like, you've also, oh, hang on, I don't know what I did there. You've also got underfloor storage, so all the bags for the cables, they've got a nice neat little trough in there. And it's a nice square boot as well. There's a little trough down at the side there for your first aid kit and a little netted bit there. And the rear seat will split in a 40-20-40 configuration as well if you need the extra load space. If you do, and you flip those seats down, that takes total capacity up to 1,400 litres. So it is a good, decent sized practical boot that you get in the BMW. The Audi counters with a slightly bigger boot at 535 litres, so an additional 10 litres of boot space. And obviously, as you can see, you can still get the 4 AutoEV suitcases in here, plus the camera bag. However, there's no underfloor storage in the Audi, which means you've got to take your other cables around in this separate bag. So that is one downside. However, it's not the end of the world, because I say the boot is big enough as it is, in fairness to it. The other thing with the Audi is you don't get the 40-20-40 split on the rear seat. It's a standard 60-40 split. However, you do get a central folding ski hatch through, so if you've got the longer loads, you can still get them through there without having to fold the outer 2 seats down. So the Audi is slightly bigger. If you do fold those seats down, it goes up to 1,465 litres. So in fairness, even with the seats up or down, the Audi is slightly bigger. But the BMW counters with having better cable storage management. So it's a relatively even draw here, I would think. Rear seats. Well, bear in mind, they're coupes, but even so, it's okay back here. That's my driving position. I'm 5'8", and I have got knee room. Footroom's starting to get a little bit tight. You know, I can get my feet underneath the front seat, but you do start to feel it encroach a little bit. 3 across, well, it would be a tight squeeze in terms of width, I would suggest. And the roof does feel like it's starting to close in on me a little bit now. So if I was taller, for instance, you know, my head would be well into the headlining of this car. Whilst this is not a dedicated EV platform, because remember you can get an X2 with a combustion engine, there isn't much of a tunnel in the centre here, but you are intruded by this sort of like storage area here. So anyone trying to sit there, the shins are going to be, you know, hitting there. Now I have had 3 children across the back of this, and I've had my daughter and her 2 friends in the back of the car. And we put the smallest one in the middle. You've got a secondary belt, but obviously it's one of those you have to clip in there first, because or it would tuck itself away into the headliner, because obviously you can fold the centre section down. So what I'm trying to say is it's fine for a small family like us. I mean, there's just obviously me, my wife, my daughter, and a small dog, so it's fine for us. If you're a family of 5, yeah, let's just think about that for a second. You'd certainly be better off with the iX1 in that scenario, but it's okay. What does help is the lighter interior of this car. It does feel a little bit more open, and of course I've gone for the panoramic glass sunroof in this car, so there's a little bit more light comes into the car. There's storage because you get the nets and the mat, you know, in the backs of the front seats. There's sort of like door bins as well, which will shape to take water bottles. You've got the fold down armrest with the 2 cup holders in it as well. There's 2 USB-C charging ports at the back of this centre tunnel here, and the ISOFIX points are really easy to get to with just these flip up covers. So yeah, it's certainly a bit tighter back here than maybe, as I say, you would need for if you're a family of 5. But if you've just got small children back here, I mean, my daughter's 10. She's quite comfortable in the back of the car, sitting behind me, or, you know, my wife, who's a lot taller than I am, she's quite comfortable back here. But yeah, just think about it, as I say, if you're carrying taller passengers, teenagers, as they're starting to get that growth spurt, they're starting to encroach in them on headroom. Let's check if the Audi's any better. Yes, it is. It does feel a lot roomier in here in the Audi. There certainly feels like there's more space around about my legs and feet. Again, the seat's set up for me, so you can see there's a lot more knee room I have. Again, the footroom's starting to get a little bit tight, but the footwell itself feels much more open. So my feet do feel like they've got a little bit more space. Plus, there's a slightly flatter rear bench, and there is absolutely no rear centre tunnel here, so 3 across the back is a lot more palatable than it is in the BMW. The roof lining obviously is starting to slope back because it is the Sportback, but Audi have done a lot to scoop out as much as they can of the headlining before it goes. Now admittedly this car doesn't have a sunroof, so I'm not sure how much that would cause that to drop any further, but certainly it doesn't feel as claustrophobic from the point of view from the top of my head to the headlining, but it does feel claustrophobic because it's got a black headlining in this car, if that makes sense. So you know, a glass roof would really open this up, but it certainly feels more spacious in the back of the Audi. Storage, well, you don't have any mat pockets on the backs of the front seats. However, you do have good sized deep door bins. You've also got little bins, I'll grab my water bottle, on the tops of the door handles there, just to slip water bottles in, so that's quite handy. And you also have the flip down armrest as well, with the water bottles in there too. The back here, you've also got 2 USB-C charging ports plus a 12-volt socket, plus, although the BMW has got a vent, you can't alter the temperature back here, which you can back here. ISOFIX points, like the BMW, they're very easy to get to. You just have the little plastic covers that you just move out the way, and then you click your ISOFIX points in. And the backs of the seats are nicely shaped as well, so you really nestle into them as well. So in terms of practicality, it's the Audi that takes the win again. There's certainly more room in the back of it. You know, if there's a family of 5, you're buying a car, you're certainly the kids are going to feel much better off in the back of the Audi than they are in that BMW. The headroom, as I say, will start to encroach again if you're slightly taller than me, but like the BMW, you can alleviate that by going for the SUV style Q4 e-tron rather than the Sportback. There's just a tiny little bit of lack of storage because of lack of mat pockets, but it does counter with deeper door bins better ventilation in the back as well, and the slightly nicer rear seats. So practicality wise, like design, although there is a lack of cable storage in the boot of the Audi, it is slightly larger in the boot, and it is slightly better, oh sorry, it is a lot better in terms of the rear seat accommodation. So Audi takes the win on practicality. Now, like I said earlier about the exterior styling, I've done the interior of this car in other reviews, so I won't do too much in here. I'm just basically going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about it. What I like about it is the design. I love the way that BMW are doing their interiors now. As much as their outside is still courting controversy, they're knocking the interiors out of the park, I think. I think this is a brilliant interior. I love this sweeping curved display here, and all the information is up in your eye line. So it's on two screens, one in front of the driver and then your infotainment screen in the centre, which is curved slightly towards the driver. You can adjust what you see here on the steering wheel here, so you can adjust the content, the amount of content. You can make it as much as you want, or you can really minimise it. I usually have it so I've got a navigation map in the centre there, and then I usually, when I've got my Apple CarPlay on, it'll have the media up here. You've got a brilliant head-up display as well, which again you can control the amount of content that it sees. And at first I thought I always liked BMW's iDrive controller, and of course the iX1 and iX2 moved away from that to now just be a touchscreen. I didn't know how I was going to go on with it, but in fairness, it's quite easy to use, the touchscreen. And it seems like there's a lot there at first, but in fairness, once you've set everything up, you don't need to go into it that much, because you can control the rest through the steering wheel, buttons down here, or through your voice as well, because there's voice control on it. Obviously, as I said, there's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is wireless, which is lovely. There is also, I can't say it too loud because it'll start it up, but basically if you've got smart gadgets at home that are controlled by, then you control it from the car as well. So for instance, if you're driving home and you want to switch on your hall lights or whatever, you can do that from here as well, so that's quite good. Right, what else do I like about it? Right, minimalist sort of like cockpit down here, but there is a lot of buttons in fairness. So your stop-start button here, your transmission selectors here, parks there, a scroll wheel for volume, and then 3 capacitive buttons down here. So you auto hold, you got this button here which takes you a shortcut into your driver assistance, drivetrain and chassis and charging, and then your My Modes button, which is like your driving modes, where you can set it all up how you like it. There's a storage bin in here, albeit quite shallow, where my wife keeps a little tube of hand cream in there, and then underneath you've got a really nice big storage tray that's rubber lined at the bottom, so you know, putting your sunglasses in there, or even my iPad or notepads go in there quite nicely. So there's a good bit of storage. 2 cup holders in front, as you can see. I've got a water bottle and a coffee flask usually, wireless charging pad which stays upright and then just clips in behind that bar, which I do like as well, and a good set of door bins on either side, not lined on the bottom, but in fairness feel well built. And nice. That's the other thing, the materials that BMW use, they're really good, really high quality. So this slightly textured rubber that you see here, and then onto this sort of like soft touch leather like at the top of the dash, and then this aluminium trim along here, which then also is then mirrored on the door handles as well. Big chunky door handles, that's good. The seats are superb, they really are. I've done some big miles in this car now. Been up to Scotland to see my mum in it. Tomorrow I'm actually going to Wales on a press launch, and I'm taking this, and they just don't feel anything but supportive. You know, they just, for long journeys you can adjust them. The squab can adjust out for length. Good lateral support, good thigh support. My only gripe with it is manual adjustment on a £67,000 car. Come on, BMW, that's ridiculous. And it is annoying because, you know, we were away on holiday just recently, and before we'd been on holiday, my wife had been driving the car quite a lot because I'd been so busy. She was using the car, and I got back and I got jumped into it after 2 weeks away in France, and it took me ages to get my driving position right. You know, so I do like having the memory position on the seats. You know, just one for me. You know, 11-year-old Jeep Grand Cherokee's got it. Why does this not have it? Anyway, there you go. Also as well, the steering wheel's too thick. That's my other bugbear. I don't like the thick steering wheel that BMW do on these M Sport cars. It doesn't need to be that thick. But it's a nice design and just the right amount of buttons on it. You know, so you've got volume, media, the control for changing this over here on the right hand side, and the telephone, and on this side is the cruise control. Also as well, the set button, this is quite nice. If you press and hold that, it turns off the speed limit warning after a few seconds. It tells you on the head-up display. That's really good as well, the head-up display. That's a worthwhile thing to have. That's nice because it's in your line of sight, and you can adjust what, again, like here, you can adjust the amount of content you do or don't see. So that's superb. And it just feels classy in here. I went for this, again, this trim, this, I don't know what they call it, Verganza ice silver or something, I don't know what it is. But basically it's this kind of off-white side with a grey in the middle, just to give a bit of a lift. The other cars that were being offered to me were greys and blacks inside, and whilst there was one I preferred the external colour, it wasn't as highly specified as this car, and it didn't have this interior, so I plumped for this one. So the interior of the BMW, it feels futuristic, it feels modern, but not overwhelming with tech. There's just the right amount of stuff in it, and as I say, once you get used to where everything is in here, you don't tend to go into it that much. Even things like the BMW app, which is a really good app to use. I sat last night and programmed, I had it car plugged into the charger, the home charger, and I sat there last night on the sofa, we were watching a movie, and I just programmed the start time in, and you know, when I wanted it to start charging and all the rest of it, and it just send it to the car. The other thing obviously you can do is you can do the same with the navigation. You know, you can program a route in where you're charging things on the app and then send it to the car. So it is quite clever in that sense. I mean, a lot of cars have that, but it's nice to be able to do it. But as I say, it's not overwhelming. You don't get in and go, oh my God, what does all this do? It's quite easy just to get on with from day one. But yeah, I love the interior of this car. I think this is one of BMW's best efforts, and I really like most of their interiors, in fairness. But yeah, good interior. Now, the immediate thing is when you jump into the Audi, two things first of all strike you. The first thing is it feels a lot darker in here. Now, obviously this car's got a dark interior specified. You can have a black interior in the BMW. So that's the first thing. But you do feel a little bit more enclosed in. And Audi, I mean, it feels like an Audi. That's the first thing to say. You know, if you drive an A3, an A4, a Q8, whatever, an A6, you jump in this, you're going to go, oh yeah, I know what this is. I know what all this does. So that familiarity that you get with Audi is present here. And there's good and bad with that, I think. The first thing that you notice is there's a lot more going on in the driver's display. Now you can change that, obviously. If I press view here, I can then change what it shows me. So you can minimize the dials, you can have the navigation in the center, you can have your media in the center, you can have a big trip computer there, however you want it. Put the dials big further up with the nav in the middle of there. You see, so you can change it there, so you can fiddle around with it like you can the BMW. But even so, it seems a bit busier in there. There's no head-up display. I'm assuming it's obviously an option on the car, but there's no head-up display in this particular one either. That being said, it's nice white on black, you know, so it's nice and easy to read in terms of what you can see, but there's just a lot to read, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing that strikes you about it. And then obviously the screen itself is a separate screen, so it's not integrated like the BMW's is. It's separated out by these vents. These feel a little bit, you know, the vents themselves, nice big vents, but the styling isn't as cohesive as it is in the BMW. That being said, again, you've got the separate climate control down here, which they've got all physical buttons. So although the BMW, which is in the screen, is relatively simple to use, it's not as simple to use as the Audis, where everything's just an actual physical button. You're turning up your fan speed. It's a really hot day today, so if I'm turning up the fan speed, you know, it's just a click of the button there. Same with the temperature either side. Heated seats, a physical button. You know, so as you're driving along, as soon as you know what it is, it's a hand stretch away and you click it and it's on. So pros and cons, not as nicely designed, but physical buttons, dare to suggest, maybe a bit easier to use. This screen, what I do like about Audi's infotainment screen is when you click on something, so you go into it, let's say we're going into, say, the car settings, it's a click, you know? So drive select. Oh, what did I do wrong there? Audi drive select, there we go, click. And there's your drive modes there, efficiency, comfort, auto, dynamic and individual. So although it's a touch screen, when you press it, you can feel it clicking, yeah? And it just lets you know you've actually done something. So that's what I've always liked about Audi's screen. However, there is no getting away from the fact it now feels a little bit last gen tech in comparison with BMW or their operating system. It's all right, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people will be fine with it and they'll get on with it quite nicely. You know, I mean, everything's there that you expect to find. There doesn't seem to be at first as much kind of overwhelming stuff in here. But what you then find is it's buried within sub-menus. So like, for instance, settings. You know, you've got to, where was it? Settings. You've then got to see it's all in there now, so you've got to go in to find where the thing is. It's a bit easier to find in the BMW. It's very clear and very legible, like the dashboard here is, but some things are buried within menus. So that's what I will say with regards to the Audi. Doesn't feel as modern a tech as you get in the BMW. But as I say, I quite like the physical buttons. What I don't like, however, are these touch-sensitive controls that Audi seem to now have adopted from Volkswagen. Why, Audi? Why have you done that? Because they're hopeless. No one likes them on Volkswagens. What makes you think we're going to pay extra to have them on an Audi? They're bloody useless. I hate them. They're just rubbish. They just are, and there's too often you hit them with your heel of your hand as you're driving it. They're just, no, I'm really annoyed they've done that. Skoda haven't, so why has Audi done it? Anyway, there we go. Steering wheel, a bit smaller than the BMWs in terms of the rim thickness. It feels a bit better. Although it's not quite as nicely designed. It feels a little bit more, I don't know, apart from the buttons, I think the BMW just looks a little bit nicer, but I prefer the thickness of the rim. Matron. Right. The quality. Right. You know what? It's okay. I mean, everything feels well screwed together, but there just seems a lot of plastic for an Audi. And that's one thing I've always found with the Q4. You know, it doesn't feel quite as, some of the plastics lower down, just a bit more scratchy than they should be in an Audi. You know, yeah, I don't quite get why they've done that on this Q4. I mean, obviously they sell a lot of them, so not everyone feels the same. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with it. Again, I say it's well screwed together, but you know, you can see the joints and the moulding seams on this plastic down here, and that's not very Audi-like. I think Skoda's beating them. I really do. I think Skoda it has better quality interior now than Audi does. I really do. What I was talking about, right, this floating console that comes out by your knee here, so you can stop start, your gear select here, this nice little kind of lozenge that you rock forward or backwards. This I do like here, this almost like this iPod volume controller. I like that. You know, that's the only touch sensitive button I do like. It feels like the original old iPods. The click wheels, I like that. And there's a drive select button there, and for switching off your DSC control, there's a button in there. Column stocks, yeah, usual stuff. Lights and indicators on the left, wipers on the right, and a separate cruise control stock down here. And then, like the BMW, all your mirrors and electric window switches are mounted on the doors. The other thing that's like the BMWs, and I'm quite shocked, manual seats. What is it with these German manufacturers not fitting electric seats as standard on these expensive cars? What's going on? God almighty. Talking of the seats, oh yeah, it's a bit, I don't know which to choose now, because the Audis are lovely, really nice. They really nestle you in. They hold you back well. Same with the sort of like sides of your thighs, and you can also extend the squab like you can in the BMW as well. But yeah, bloody manual seats. What a cheek. Anyway, there we go. There's a bit too much glossy black plastic for my liking that I'm just now getting fingerprints on them as well. And as I say, that's my other thing, is it just feels a little bit dreich inside. The BMW, I know you can specify different colours, I know that. But even so, just the plastics on the dash, the glossy black here, it doesn't feel as modern as the BMW. It feels a little bit last generation. in comparison. Nothing wrong with that. It's like having an iPhone, I don't know, an iPhone 14 when the iPhone 15's out. You know, it's still an iPhone, it's still a good phone, it still does what you need it to do, but you're just looking at your mate going, oh, he's got 15, oh, it's got slightly better battery, it does better the camera, and da-da-da. That's how I feel when I jump in the Audi. It's a really nice interior, and as I say, you know, in terms of easy to live with, this would be perfect. You know, I say physical buttons, and, you know, it all does it, it's got, you know, all the rest of it. But it doesn't feel as modern as the BMW. And that's what I mean. And as I say, I'm not sure the quality is as good as it should be. So yeah, there we go. So if I'm going to put one ahead of the other, I am going to give it to the BMW. I just think the BMW's got a better interior, mostly because of the way it's designed, mostly for the tech. And the build quality. The Audi just lacks a little bit behind because of it just feels a little bit last generation, and I don't think some of the plastics and the interior fit. Don't get me wrong, it is a very good interior, and I'm sure a lot of people will get on very well with it and be very, very happy with it. It is a good interior, but I just feel the BMW's is better. So in terms of interiors, it's the BMW that I'm going to put in first place, with the Audi second. Now the iX2 has a usable battery capacity of 64.8 kilowatt hours, which according to WLTP figures should give up to 267 miles of range, which is a bit disappointing in some respects, that we're not talking about a car that can do close to 300 miles. And in fairness, with my time with the car, I'm seeing around about 230 miles in overall running about. I've had a little bit more than that, close to 240, but roughly it's around about 230 miles of range that I'm seeing out of the car. So fairly close to its official figure, with a general kind of running around. Now admittedly, I'm running this car around in sort of like the more kind of milder months, you know, through the summer. So it's doing a little bit better than my old Renault Megane was doing, in fairness. Charging speeds, nothing to really write home about, 130 kilowatts. However, it still does the 10 to 80% benchmark in 29 minutes. And that's down to some clever battery management software that BMW have now fitted. So what it means is it can hang on to the peak power of charging for longer. The curve's flatter, in other words. So it doesn't sort of like, you know, ramp up and then sort of like fall off the cliff immediately, sort of like after you've got past, say, 20% or so. So it is quite good in that sense. The other thing that's quite clever with it, although a lot of cars are starting to do this now, in fairness, it will precondition the battery if you're using the navigation system with charging stops programmed in. So it knows you've programmed in, say, a charging stop. It will start to precondition the temperature of the battery to get it to the right optimum temperature to take the charge. So that's quite good. It comes with an onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard, but if you've got a 7 kilowatt wall box like I have, then you're going from from a flat battery to a full battery in 10.5 hours. Now this is one big change with the Q4. They've simplified the range a little bit more, and the battery that now comes on the car is a 77 kilowatt hour battery usable capacity, which is bigger than the BMW's. The WLTP figure for this car, the dual motor Quattro, is 321 miles. Now if you look at the EV database, where I get a lot of sort of like the real world ranges from, they suggest that a real world range of around about 280 miles is more likely. I think you probably would get 300 miles out of the car if you were being sensible with it in milder months, in fairness. So I think it's a good usable capacity and a good usable range, more than you get with the BMW. So that is a big benefit you've got with the Audi. Charging speeds, now they're 175 kilowatts on the dual motor car, only 135 on the single motor car, so the 45 rather than the 55 in Audi speak. But oddly enough, despite the faster charging speed, it's only beating the BMW from 10 to 80% by 1 minute. So it takes 28 minutes rather than 29 minutes to do the 10 to 80% benchmark. So maybe the BMW is a bit better on that charging curve, as I say. If charging up from your home wall box, again, like the BMW, you get an 11 kilowatt charger, onboard charger is standard, but if you're charging up from your home wall box and it's a 7 kilowatt unit, then you're going to go from flat to full in a little bit longer, because obviously it's a bigger battery, and that's 12 hours and 15 minutes. Now, as I say, I've spent quite a bit of time obviously now with this BMW. I've really got to know it, and I've really got under the skin of it, and I really like it. You know, as it's by far the driver's car of the two. And I'm not to say it's hard-edged or anything, you know, that's not what I'm saying. It just feels a little bit more connected to you as a driver than the Audi did. But that always has been the way with BMWs and Audis, I've always found. Audis have always been great cars, really lovely to live with. But BMW's always had the edge when it comes to sort of like pin-sharp handling and a little bit more communication to the driver. 313 horsepower, so down on the Audi by a little bit, but not to 60, 5.6 seconds, apologies. So only 0.2 of a second slower to the benchmark 60 miles an hour from rest. So not as much, you know, as you think maybe the power would give you. But the difference in terms of how the car feels when you put your foot down is quite a lot. You know, it doesn't feel, you feel like you've made that happen. It's not this, again, it's saying about, you know, Tesla, you know, with the Model Y, it's like a switch. When you put your foot down, poof, it all happens. It feels like this is a more mechanical feeling car. And I think that's where some of the legacy manufacturers win against people like Tesla and maybe some of the newer manufacturers that haven't, you know, had the experience of building combustion engine cars like BMW, Audi, Mercedes, people like that have. There's just a bit more connection between you as a driver and the car's mechanicals than there is in some of these newer brands. Maybe that's me, but that's how I feel with it, certainly. But certainly the weighting of the controls, the throttle pedal, the brakes, oh, those brakes, they feel really good. You know, you put your foot down and they just haul the car up. There's much more confidence in the brake pedal than you've got in the Audi. Same with the steering. You know, again, it's just much more direct. It's much more, there's more feedback coming through the wheel. The ride's fun. I've always said that about the iX2. When I first drove it at launch, it does feel firm. It feels like old school BMW M Sport. If you've ever driven sort of like the old E36 3 Series, you know, and 5 Series of a similar vintage, going from say an SE to an M Sport, and you could really feel the M Sport, the suspension a lot firmer, a lot tighter, but the damping is a lot better than the Audis. So when you go, you know, again, I'm driving them on the same route, so you're driving down this road here, there are the same potholes that I'm going to go through, so let me just go through them. Yeah, you see, I can, you know, they're there, but I'm isolated from them, so I can hear the suspension working, but it's not coming into the car. So the damping is better. There's a better state of tune on the damping, and it's just a better controlled chassis. There's not as much noise, there's not as much chatter coming from underneath the car, and therefore I feel a little bit more isolated in terms of refinement in the BMW as well. It feels like there's a little bit more soundproofing, and as I say, you're cosseted a little bit more from the imperfections that the car will find on the road. So yeah, I think this is a better car to drive than the Audi. As I say, the brakes are nice, the steering's better, the ride quality, as I say, it's fun, but the damping's better on the car than it is on the Audi. The driving position, well, I've just really got used to it. As I say, I've got such a nice relationship, you know, between myself, the seat, and all the controls in the car. But as I say, I've done quite a few thousand miles in the car now, so I've kind of, you know, got it finely tuned to me. I'm sure it would be exactly the same in the Audi. You know, if I spend a bit more, you know, sort of like the same amount of time in it, you'd get it exactly how you like it. There doesn't seem as big as an expansive dashboard as there is in the Audi, so I can actually see the bonnet of the BMW from where I'm sitting, and I sit low in the car. I like my seat really low down, and you do feel like you sit in the BMW. You sit really hunkered down. You do in a lot of respects to the Audi, but it feels a bit more SUV-like than the BMW does. Now, interestingly enough, my wife drove the Audi. She likes the Audi's driving position. She's taller than me. Well, pretty much everyone's taller than me. But she prefers it because, you know, she likes the big tall 4x4. Obviously she mostly is driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee, so she quite likes the Audi, and she's an ex-Audi driver. She had a TT when we first started dating many years ago, and so the controls and everything was quite familiar to her to get into. Although in saying that, before the Audi, she had a BMW 3 Series company car, but she does like the Audi. She did say, she said when she got in it, she went, oh yeah, this feels like I'm used to. This feels like an Audi of my old TT, so the controls are familiar to it. So having to go into the screen a little bit more of the BMW to do things like the climate control and the fan speed and stuff like that takes a little bit more getting used to. I am used to it, but there's no getting away from the fact that, as I say, the Audi's just that, it's just that little bit easier to jump into, you know, straight away and get on with straight away. You know, that's what I mean. It's a bit of an easier car just to live with on a day-to-day basis. Everything's just a hand stretch away and it's on buttons. The BMW, you've got to learn a little bit more of the tech of it. No, it's not overwhelming, but then the juxtaposition of that is it feels much more modern, the BMW. It feels a much more modern car, much more modern design, much more modern technology that you get in the BMW than you do in the Audi. I like this car. As I say, you know, I appreciate it's not everyone's cup of chai latte when when it comes to the way that the car looks, but in terms of the way the car drives, I really, really like it. It's something you have to drive the car. You have to, you know, if you're looking at the iX2 or you're looking at both of these cars, go for a good long drive in it, because you will really start to appreciate, especially if you spend a bit of time in the car on your own and you enjoy driving. This is a sharper tool. This is a sharper driver's car, and I do prefer it. Yeah, it's just that nicer bit of car. Again, we're coming onto that same bit of road. Oh, hang on a second, what this guy manoeuvres his S-Class. A lovely old W1240 S-Class there. I come up in this roundabout, and again, it's just that kind of real change of direction. As long as there's nobody there, let's have a look, see, can I get it into it? There's a car just gone through it, but you can just feel, yeah, oh yeah, the brakes are just so much better. As soon as you're onto the pedal, it's hauling you up. There isn't that weird, odd transition between regen and physical brakes. It just, yeah. It's a real, yeah, I like this car. I'm looking forward to a long drive in it tomorrow, I have to say. Yeah, so conclusion wise, in terms of driving, between the Audi, the BMW is the BMW is without doubt the better driver's car of the two. If you enjoy driving, this is the car you're going to get on with. Right, so the Audi. Few things have changed with the Audi. So this is a dual motor car, so that's with a 55 Quattro, so more power, 340 PS. It does 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, so plenty fast enough for this type of car. I wouldn't say it feels overly quick I mean, it is. You look at the dial, you're going quite fast. You know, so when I say it doesn't feel overly quick, what I mean is it sort of sanitizes you a little bit from the speed, if that makes sense. Now that's quite a good thing, depending obviously on what you like. You know, obviously the likes of the Tesla, where it's like the Tesla Model Y, where it's like a switch, you put your foot down and poof, everything just happens. The Audi doesn't do that. The Audi feels a little bit more like you're cocooned from that sort of speed. So will depend on whether or not you like that or not. The steering wheel, so whilst it's thinner of rim, which I do prefer, I feel it's a little bit large for, it could do with just coming in a touch. I think there is probably a sportier steering wheel you could option up on the car, because it tends to, whilst I like the fact that it's not overtly thick, I think the diameter's a little bit too much. It feels like quite a big steering wheel. The other control that I'm not 100% sure about is the brakes. I think the brakes feel quite vague on the car. They don't inspire a huge amount of confidence. If you just come off there and you start to push down, it doesn't start, and then all of a sudden it's not a smooth transition between the regen and then the physical brakes. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just a very difficult thing to try and modulate. You feel like it's regen and then all of a sudden there's a bit of a grab. Does that make sense? So it's not quite as smooth a transition on the brakes as you get in, say, the BMW. And it doesn't really inspire you to sort of like hustle the car along a road a lot. The other thing I'd say is the ride's a bit Well, it's okay. It's not. The BMW is very firm on the ride, and I've always felt that. I did when I first drove the car at launch. It was very sporty, you know, really firm on the ride. This isn't so much firm. You just feel a lot being transitioned through the wheels. You can hear some of those potholes and surface imperfections, which you don't get with the BMW. You know they're there, but you're more isolated from it. It's better damped than the Audi is, which I do find strange. Now this is on 20-inch wheels. I think maybe if it was on smaller wheels, maybe you'd feel a bit of a difference. I certainly wouldn't want to go much more than this in terms of wheel size. You know, I think the Vorsprung goes up to 21s or something. Now this is a big bad bit of road. Let me see how this does here. If I can get these, yeah, just if I get, yeah, you can really feel those potholes. You can really feel them come through into the structure of the car, and you don't get that with the BMW. The driving position is superb. You know, like I was saying earlier about the interior, it's very Audi-like. You know, it's exactly as you'd expect to find. And that's what I mean. I think it's quite an easy car to live with, the Audi. You get in and immediately you're very comfortable. Sorry, I am just creeping above the speed limit there. I apologise, everyone. It's a 50 and I'm just creeped up to 52 and it's telling me. You do sit. You sit well, everything's easy to see. You've got a big expansive dashboard that stretches out in front of you, but you can see the base of the windscreen. What you can't see, however, is the bodywork of the car. So you don't see the bonnet at all, unless you're a bit taller than me, I suppose, which wouldn't be hard in fairness. But the driving position is superb. You know, as I say, the seats are lovely. They hold you really well. It's very easy just to jump in the Audi and immediately find a very comfortable position with it. The only part of that I would caveat is the move from the accelerator onto the brake just needs a little bit more of a lift of your foot than it does in other cars. But again, I've got quite small feet, so that might just be down to me. But otherwise, that's all right. Good visibility out the car. As I said, the only downside is you've got that spoiler that just splits that rear screen. It's not intrusive. It's not, you know, it's not going to make the absolutely. You can still see what's going on, but all I'm saying is, whereas the BMW, you don't have that spoiler that splits the screen. It sits at the bottom of the tailgate. That's the only downside. But other than that, it's good visibility out of the car. Mirrors are nice, good big mirrors out on the side, and I say all the controls, whilst it's not as modern feeling as the BMW, the fact it's got physical climate controls mean they're easy to find with just the touch of your hand rather than taking your eyes off the road too much. The dash is quite busy, as I said, but it's quite legible in the sense that although you can see all of the information, it's just that there's a lot of information in there. And that's it really. I mean, I can feel the differences that the Audi have made to it, and I've always liked the Q4. I've always thought it's a much better car than the bigger e-tron, and I still do. I prefer it to the new Q8 e-tron. I think it's a much nicer car. I mean, obviously that's a more expensive car, a much more expensive car, too expensive. But you know, where some of the materials in here disappoint a little bit, as I say, but the trade-off is just a little bit of a nicer car. I actually prefer it. You know, there's better efficiency from it. You know, you can see that you're going to get better range out of the car. I'd love to do a really long trip in a Q4. It's one of the cars I've not done a really long drive in, you know, like up to Scotland or so. I've spent a lot of time in them, but they've all been slightly shorter journeys. But I do like it, as I say. It's just an easy car to jump in and just get on with. And that, I think, is where the appeal with the Q4 is. As I say, you'd get in it and immediately you know where everything is, how everything works, you're comfortable, and it does everything that it says on the tin. It's just not that exciting to drive, because if you're a driver, there's not a lot comes back, and it goes back to what I said at the start there. It feels like you're isolated from it. You're isolated from what the car's doing. So, you know, the steering, it's a little bit light for me. It just doesn't feel quite as meaty as the BMWs. So, oh, for God's sake, I know. just gone a little bit above. Stop it. You know, if I go into this roundabout here, which is one that's a nice kind of change of direction in it here, and it grips well, but yeah, the steering doesn't feel quite as pin sharp. It just, oh god, there was brakes hauling up for that junction. They didn't feel great. Yeah, so as a driver, it's not quite there. But as an everyday car, this is really good. It's a really nice car, and the changes that Audi have made to it, with the better efficiency, the bigger battery, the better range, make it a much easier car to get on with on a daily basis. Now, one of the issues that I did have with the iX2 was its relative lack of value for money. If your starting price for an iX2 xDrive 30M Sport, so the dual motor car, is just over £56,000, but by the time you've optioned it up, like this particular car here, the list price on this one is £66,570. So it's just under 10 grand of options, then plus your on the road charges on top of that, which seems like a lot, doesn't it? But the Audi's not exactly crowning itself in glory here, because the Audi, this list on this Audi here, it's £64,185, and this is not as well equipped as the BMW because it doesn't have the panoramic sunroof, it doesn't have full leather interior. There's only a couple of options on this car, actually, in fairness. The spec sheet here I've got, well, there's 3 options, and they total to £2,485 as opposed to the £9,000 worth of options on the BMW. So the list price of the Q4 e-tron 55 is a lot higher than the iX2s. Okay, you get a bigger battery, it's slightly better range, but you're talking of a £7,000 premium for the Audi over the basic iX2. That's a lot of money. All of a sudden, that argument with the BMW might not sound quite so bad as at first thought. Now, these are just 2 contenders in this all-electric coupe SUV market space, which seems to be dominating the EV world at the moment, because pretty much everyone's got one out there. So what else could you potentially look at? Well, Mercedes, oddly enough, don't have one. You know, so if you look at the top 3 German manufacturers, BMW, Audi and Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes-Benz don't offer a coupe version of their EQA. Or is the EQA the coupe version of the EQB, the 7-seat SUV? There's a good question for you. But the EQA is sort of Mercedes' take on this size of all-electric compact SUV at a premium price with the premium badge on it. So there's the EQA from Mercedes. If you look at sort of like the Volkswagen group that obviously Audi's part of, then obviously there's a couple of cars from within that it competes with. The Volkswagen ID.5. It's a bit bland for me personally. You know, okay, yes, it's the same underneath, I suppose, in some respects. Audi's done a bit more to the car, in fairness, to make it feel like an Audi. But yeah, it's the similar size, it's similar style. It's that sort of like swooping 5-door coupe SUV like car. The ID.5 is to the ID.4 what the Sportback is to the standard Q4 e-tron. So there we go. The real competitor I think that Audi's up against, well, obviously, and BMW, is the Skoda Enyaq coupe. Because I will love the Enyaq, and the coupe version of that offers, you know, really good value for money. Of course, you can get the VRS and that car now, and that's just had a little update as well. So the Skoda Enyaq coupe is another contender from within the Volkswagen group. Let's head out to the Far East now. Who do we have out there? Well, of course, we've got Genesis. If we're looking at the premium badges, Genesis want to be mentioned in the same breath as BMW, Audi and Mercedes-Benz, and they've got the brilliant little GV60, which is obviously based on Hyundai Group's eGMP platform. Great efficiency, brilliant charging speeds, excellent range from it, quirky styling, and that sort of luxurious premium feeling interior. So that's a car to consider as well, the GV60. And of course, if you're not bothered about the badge, and of course from Kia there's the phenomenally good EV6. That's a bit more coupe-like in its sort of style, and I think that's a car that you're going to consider as a contender too. From Japan, I want to talk to you about Nissan, because I think there's a car that we forget it's there, and we forget how bloody good it is. That's the Nissan Ariya. I think that's a phenomenally good car. In fact, it won one of the awards in the AutoEV Awards last year. I think that's a great car, and it's a really stylish looking car, and it's a world away from, if you've had a Nissan Leaf and you think, oh, it's just going to be a modern version of that, it really isn't. It's a phenomenally good car to drive. So of course there's the Nissan Ariya to consider as well. Ford. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, because if you remember when the Q4 e-tron first came out, we put it up against the Ford Mustang Mach-E. And again, it's a car I think that sometimes we do forget about, because I think Ford are, well, they're not quite, you know, they're not really sort of like pushing themselves forward in the EV world yet. And what they've given us has been disappointing. But I quite like the Mustang Mach-E. It's a good car to drive. So that's a consideration as well. And from Stellantis Group, I also have to mention the Peugeot E3008, because I road tested that car a couple of months back. Now, as I say, I don't think it's as good a car as these two, in fairness, to drive. However, it does look great. I think the car looks phenomenal. It's a really eye-catching car, and it's certainly making Peugeot appear as if they're heading down the right road by pushing themselves up into this kind of premium market. The interior's phenomenal. I think the styling of the car's great, and the range that's potentially having the big battery, it's got over a 90 kilowatt hour battery it's going to be available in the car soon as well. So that's a consideration too. So don't dismiss Peugeot just because of the badge. Take a look at the E3008. I personally don't think it's as good as these two, but it has a lot to offer. But what I'm trying to say is, there's a lot out there to choose from, and a lot of it is a lot cheaper than both of these cars. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the BMW iX2. Well, it's actually quite practical. We like the driver operating system and the interior design and the use of materials. The performance and the driving dynamics are really very good. And in fairness, it is a simple range with easy to understand pricing. We don't like, well, the styling is still very divisive. The battery size and range could be better. And whilst there is a simple range with pricing structure that's easy to understand, a lot of the things are optional. And of course, there is a high price premium over the combustion engine X2 model. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the Audi Q4 e-tron 55 Sportback. Well, we like the Audi styling. The Sportback doesn't really compromise the space that's on offer inside. There's a bigger battery and a better range on offer than the BMW. And like most Audis, it's very easy to live with. We don't like, well, it's not as much fun to drive as the BMW. The brakes don't really inspire much confidence. Disappointingly, the interior still has some lower grade plastics in it. And the interior doesn't feel as modern or as technological as the BMW iX2. And like the BMW, it's expensive, and we feel it offers poor value for money. So, what's the better of the two cars? And did I choose the right long-termer? Well, I'll say this. I think the BMW is the better driver's car. If you enjoy driving and dare suggest you want to stand out from the crowd a little bit more, then the BMW, I think, is the one to have. I think it is certainly the driver's car, as BMWs always have been over Audis. There's no difference in these cars. It's certainly the better driver's car over the Audi. That being said, the Audi is probably the easier car to live with, the easier car to get on with. It's a bit more understated, and obviously with the bigger battery it offers a little bit more range for people, and as I say, it flies under the radar a little bit more, and it's easy to see why the Q4 e-tron is as popular as it is. And of course, the updates that Audi have made to the car do make it just that little bit better than the car that went before it. So that's how I'm going to conclude this test. It's a little bit like suits. This is like a Hugo Boss suit. It's very lovely, it's beautifully cut, really well put together, and you're going to look great in it. This is a bit more Paul Smith. It's still a suit, but it's got a little bit more pizzazz, but not everyone will want that. However, in a real twist to it, what I will say is this: there are other cars out there that offer better than either of these two cars for less money. but I'm still happy with my BMW. Thanks for watching another twin test review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. And then once you've done that, make sure you've then pressed the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this video, and I do hope you have, then please make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. The comment section usually gets quite busy when I feature the BMW iX2 on it. I'm sure this won't be any different. Do you agree with me? Do you think the Audi is the better car to live with, but the BMW just offers that little bit more something special? Or do you think I'm absolutely havering and you still think this is ugly as sin? Let me know in the comment section down below. Remember, we're across all social media as well. So Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, TikTok even. So give us a follow there too if you don't mind, because that helps us. And if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, might not be a new car like either of these two, might be a used one. Maybe you're looking for a used Q4 e-tron and you want to know what the old car was like. How are you going to find that out? Well, I'll tell you. You stick on the AutoEV YouTube channel and you scroll through the back catalogue of videos. There's a little search bar at the top there. Just put an Audi Q4 e-tron and our initial road test review of the car will come up, and you'll be able to find out all the watts, all the details, watts and all about the Q4 e-tron when it was first launched a few years back on there. So don't go away, stick on the YouTube channel, because the AutoEV road test, remember, is the road test review that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I shall see you again soon.